let the world know the truth about the Pakistani military and the ISI.
Mhm. So I was telling you that they launched something called Operation Topak, that is a death by 1,000 cuts under General Ziaul Haq.
80s?
Late 80s. Yeah, 80s, yes. Ziaul Haq came to power in 77. They started off by that time. Initially, they trained their guns on Punjab, supporting the Khalistani movement, Bhinderwale and the gang. And then eventually, between 85, 86 and 87, we got Punjab under control. And when that happened, like I brought out, 87, after 1987, essentially 88, 89, they started fomenting trouble, sending those mujahids freed in Afghanistan, started sending them across the line of control. And then started the initially insurgency and then essentially terrorism, the wave of terrorism in J&K. We've seen very violent times in early 90s. What we did, that is the state response, we actually had to pump in more army and establish a counter-terrorism grid. We raised Rashtriya Rifles. Today, it is the largest counter-terrorism force in the world. In fact, in my book, I write about this, A General Reminiscences. I write about all this, the rise and ups and downs of militancy and terrorism, and what our state response has been. So we raised a counter-terrorism force. We also raised a contra-rebel group. We got a lot of surrendered terrorists to raise a group called Ikhwan. Now, Ikhwan, this group of surrendered terrorists, helped army and the Rashtriya Rifles and the J&K police to bring insurgency under control, terrorism under control. They worked well for about 9 years. And after that, we wound them up and had fairly good successes, but then we tried a very bold experiment. You know, there are contra-rebel groups all over the world, but what we did, that has no parallel. We made a battalion of my regiment, Jackal Regiment. We made a battalion of surrendered terrorists, a territorial army battalion. And the soldiers of that battalion did extremely well. So that has been as far as the state response is concerned. But the terrorists, on the other hand, ISI, their planners, have also shifted tactics. Somewhere in 2009, 10 and 11, they started using stone pelting in addition to terrorist violence.
Sorry, sir. I'll have to pause you here. Okay. Let's kind of summarize what we just spoke about and dive a little bit into the psychology behind terrorism a little bit. 40 years that you've served now, how many terrorists have you come across in person?
When I was a commanding officer, you see what happens in the army is, up to the level of commanding officer, you are in the field with, you have a weapon, you are with fighting encounters. I've done that as a major, I've done that as a colonel.
You've been in combat as well?
Oh yes, my first book, India's Brave Hearts, I write all the stories about our combat, my soldiers' combat, all the stories of my being in combat, how God has been kind. I've had a very close shave a couple of times. I've lost men in combat. I lost 2 majors and 6 soldiers over a period of 3 years when I was a commanding officer. I have seen many terrorists come across their dead bodies. I've seen fallen soldiers. So I have been through that phase. Since you asked that if I've seen terrorists, I told you about having eliminated many Afghani nationals, one Sudani.
How did that guy land up in the subcontinent?
So there are some who go for that greater cause of Islam. They feel they want Islamic caliphate, and they are fired by that. They're radicalized with a different kind of a zeal.
But from Sudan to the subcontinent?
Oh yes, when Afghan resistance started initially for Soviet Union, many fighters came. Like, what is ISIS? ISIS tried to create a caliphate of Islamic caliphate larger than countries' boundaries. And people from different places, even from India, there has been some recruitment. So people have gone there. So this does work. It works that way as far as some of these Islamist radicalization is concerned.
Yeah, they think they're doing good for Islam, but they're also giving Islam a bad name.
True.
Their lack of education is being radicalized. That is what I've understood over the course of all these military podcasts. So, but I would love for you to shed some light on exactly this. Fair to say you've come across more than 100 terrorists, either living or dead.
Yes.
What is the commonality you saw in all of them?
Bulk of them, if not all, are very, I would say, very radicalized. They seem to be motivated for their cause, even if it is wrongly placed, as far as we see it. A number of them are actually, we found them high on some nasha.
They
Also.
were intoxicated.
Not intoxicated, if some afeem or something. They use that. For example, terrorists. A terrorist would be typically a person who's ready to give up his life, blow up wearing a explosive belt. Are those guys who are radicalized on one hand, and on the last day also they are under the influence to be able to then just charge and do something and harm themselves.
Opium.
Something.
Opioid.
Yes.
Okay. What's the average age of all these terrorists that you've come across, roughly speaking?
Bulk of them are very young. Always not more than early mid-20s. We've not had someone more. There would be an odd case of somebody who would be 30, some leadership positions, but that's it. They're all very young. Not only this, Ranveer, I've always said this in Kashmir, even in stone pelting, whenever people get hurt because of the police firing tear gas shells, pellet guns, it's only the youngsters who are injured. If everyone is so fired up for Kashmir, why don't we have anyone in his 30s being injured? Because they put youngsters ahead. None of them come ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the curses of being young as a human being is that you have an inherent sense of aggression that you want to channelize somewhere. Now, if that is combined with intoxication as well as brainwashing, as well as the power of religious radicalization, that's a very bad combination.
That exactly, you hit the nail on the head. Ranveer, that exactly is what the separatists, the ISI make use of.
Okay.